General quarters, all hands man your battle stations.
Broadcasting live on WNN 1470 AM, 95.3 FM, iHeartRadio, and the World Wide Web. This is Make America Think Again with your Google Blacklisted host, Tom Trento.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. No, Will Robinson. Danger.
All right, here we go. January 10th, 2020. Unbelievable. It's Friday. Ladies and gentlemen, your host, Tom Trento, here on the Trento Show. A couple of minutes after 11 o'clock on Friday, WNN 1470 AM. If you're driving in your automobile, you want to call all your friends and tell them to listen to this show. We're going to do a wrap-up of what's going on in the Middle East, of what's going on with Iran, what's going on with Israel. We have the Counter Jihad Squad with us today. In studio is a dear friend of ours, an expert on national security issues, Ken Abramowitz. Ken, say hello, please.
Hello, everybody. Ken Abramowitz here.
All right, one member of the Counter Jihad Squad. Then we got Dr. Roni Wexler in the control room. Roni.
Good morning, everybody. Good to be here.
Good to be here on a Friday. And is Midwest Dick with us, one of the founders of the Shariah Crime Stoppers? Are you there, Midwest Dick?
In the house.
In the house. Anybody flying this contraption?
I'm not really here.
You're not there, J.
Really
Mark. All right, we got the whole crew here, and you know what? What's today, Mark?
It is Jumpn Jummah Freaky Friday. And our little theme song for it.
Yep. Hey, we were harmonizing.
My Shariah.
Oldie but goodie.
My Shariah. Never gonna stop or give it up. Killing infidels, always got it planned. Underhand, give a lot of yell. Woo!
All right, great song. Never get tired of this song.
My Shariah.
That's Mohammed Morsi,
My Shariah.
2011, when he took over the little country of Egypt, about 80 million people.
Yeah, which everybody said had nothing to do with Sharia, and he's screaming from the pulpit, "My Sharia, the Constitution is Sharia."
It's about the Sharia. Hey, look, here at the Trento Show, our organization, the United West, we are a nonprofit educational counterterrorism organization. We have 4 mission objectives: to defend the U.S. Constitution, to defend the State of Israel, to defeat Islam, and to defeat Karl Marx. That's what we do. This is tough stuff. This is not easy work. So once in a while, you got to sit back. You have to have a little bit of fun. That's why we have coined the term here, edutainment. Our desire is to provide information for your intellectual stimulation and edification, but then we go a little crazy sometimes and touch your funny bone. Like that song there is a bit humorous, but it's got a very, very, very important point about the Sharia. Ken Abramowitz, you were a subject matter expert on a lot of issues in the Middle East. Thank you for being on the show on this Friday, January 10th. The Sharia. What is this thing, the Sharia?
Well, the Sharia is the Islamic law that the Muslims want to impose upon us, the West. We have a different set of law based on the rights of the individual. Sharia law is top down as opposed to bottom up. It's the rights of the king or Allah or Muhammad or the government imposed on the people. So it's a basic difference of opinion as to how society should be organized. Should they be bottom up? Should we, the people, rule? Or should it be top down? Should the king rule and determine how we behave or think?
Yeah, that's well put from the top down. And for our Islamic brothers and sisters, from the top down means the law is rooted in the doctrines of Islam in the Quran and the corresponding documents and the fatwas, the corresponding religious edicts by the king, which on the Sunni side, on the Shia side is the Ayatollah, on the Sunni side the Caliph, And the desire is for control of the world because, as Ken said, when you get this from the top, you get it from Allah, and there can be no human interference in the law of Allah. That's the conflict between the East and the West, and we are seeing this being played out over the past few days with the conflict in Iran and the president and all that stuff. And we're going to talk about this. We did yesterday, Thursday show. It was very cool. We laid out the timeline, how we got to this crisis with Iran and the president's last message yesterday, 2 days ago. We laid that out on Thursday. Today we're going to take a little different look at another angle of the Middle East. I want to walk through the role of Israel in all of this. But first, let's establish, Ken, a little bit about you. And you're running two organizations. You started Save the West. What is that all about?
Save the West is a website, and also I write an article every week on how to save Western civilization. Western civilization is another term for democracy. Approximately half the people in the world live in a democracy, half the people in the world live in a dictatorship. So I write about the conflict between the two of us, and therefore how to save Western civilization from the dictatorships.
All right, it's about 15:20 after, something like that, on the clock on Friday the 10th. I don't have my clock right in front of me here, so I'm winging it a little bit, but I know it's Friday the 10th. I know that for a fact. Tom Trento, your host, WNN 1470. If that signal gets a little cloudy or something, the weather, switch over to 95.3 on your dial. And we recommend downloading the app iHeartRadio. Search for WWNN 1470. If you do that, you can lock it in, and then you have us with you every moment of the day. And you want us with you over the rest of this year. I spoke to a couple of groups in the past few days, the Weston Republicans group, very much like a Tea Party group, the Weston Republicans. And I was amazed at how organized, Weston, Florida, that is, how organized they were in terms of that one thing that we are stressing as the United West, Mark. What's that one item that must be accomplished if there's victory on November 3rd, 2020?
Send us money.
That's it. Send us money. Go to theunitedwest.org and please donate. We are a nonprofit, a 501c3. You get a tax deduction for your generous donations, and make them a little more generous, will you please? We need some more equipment here. But also, in addition to needing money, what else does the state of Florida need?
Re-elect Donald Trump, that's for damn sure.
Yeah, and voter registration, that's the key. And the Western Republicans are so locked in, they're signing people up. And a day after that, I think it was Wednesday, I spoke to a group, Women for Trump, in an area in South Florida, Boca Raton. And they were registering people walking into the event.
That's the way you should do it.
That was pretty amazing, yeah.
That's the way you should do it.
These are a bunch of women warriors for truth, for justice, for the American way. So on this Jumpn Jummah Freaky Friday, we're going to hear from Damon Rosen in a little bit, calling in from Israel. We're going to hear from Dr. Roni Wexler. And I don't know about Midwest Dick. I think he's got his hands full working some equipment.
Yeah, don't bug on my control. You work your stuff out there. I work my stuff in here. Okay.
I wanna manage a crew of experts, and I lost Midwest Dick because Mark has them pushing buttons or something. So donate generously. Roni Wexler, I know you keep up on the news in Israel. And you listen to it and you read it in that language that people write backwards. What's the latest going on in the Middle East, in Israel, regarding all this crazy Trump stuff, and he's going to blow the world up?
Well, the biggest issue today and yesterday and the day before yesterday in Israel is the weather. We had rains in quantities that we haven't seen in years and years. And we had quite a problem. They were controlling that, and unfortunately we lost a number of people also.
Wow.
So there were casualties in the north and in Tel Aviv and also in the south. Other than that, we are in the same situation as everybody else. We're waiting to see what happens with Iran. And what can I tell you? President Trump is probably the most loved president, American president in Israel. He's king in Israel. And everything he's done is obviously in support of Israel as well. We had some sleepless nights in Israel, waiting to see the retaliation for the small Satan, for the little Satan. And I think that Mr. Netanyahu made it clear to everybody that if Israel is being touched in any way, shape, or form, retaliation will come immediately. And it's quiet now, and we're happy.
Ken Abramowitz, you go back and forth to Israel quite a bit yearly. You are involved as a civilian with the various military components of the Israeli government and some of the intelligence components. So you know your way around Israel, around the military capability. You run an organization called Save the West, sort of an intellectual blog laying out the intellectual ideas. You also run another organization, Citizens United for National Security. We'll talk about that in a minute. But in your trips to Israel, your many trips over the years, your experience, what's your sense of the vitality and the commitment that the Israelis have to defending their homeland in a very, very, very tough neighborhood?
Israel has learned from being on the front lines, so to speak, of the battle between democracies and dictatorships, which I actually call World War III. The war's been going on actually since the beginning of mankind. You know, when we talk about endless wars, there's always been a dispute of who's the king and who are the servants, so to speak, probably even from the caveman days when you had 100 people in a cave, who's the king and who are the servants? I'm sure they had a lot of disputes over that one too. Yeah, so Israel knows how to handle this mess, so to speak, that I call World War III. And what they've realized is that you have to fight a war every single day. They call it the battle between the wars, but every day they fight, and because they realize that it's better to fight every single day than doing nothing for 20 years and then get into a huge war like a World War II, which is basically what we did in the 1930s. We didn't do our job in curbing the rise of Japan or Germany, and then we got stuck with a huge World War II. So what they've realized is you have to fight a war every single day, a little war every single day, blow the bad guys up every day, arrest the bad guys every day, and if you do that, you can prolong and maybe even avoid the huge World War II type of scenario.
Hey, Ronnie Wexler, you were born in Israel. You fought in some of the bigger wars that Ken is speaking about. I think you were there in 1967, fighting in the 67-day war. Is that true?
In the 6 Days War, 1967, yes, and Yom Kippur War in 1973.
But what was it like when you heard that Jerusalem is ours at that moment, when historians even say miraculous victory of the Israelis over 5-6 nation armies, and Jerusalem was recaptured first time in 2,000 years. Where were you at that moment?
Well, I was very nearby. My unit was near Jerusalem, and we were all listening to radio, civilian radio, and we heard the statement, the Temple Mount is in our hand. You ask any American, where were you when Kennedy was killed? And where were you, and other significant things in history. This is something that's deep in the heart of every Israeli. And when you and I go to Jerusalem and we visit Temple Mount, we always go to the Lion's Gate there, where the first paratroopers enter the city, and we always listen to that statement that, courtesy of the Israeli news, the radio, is available to all of us, and we live the moment over and over again. It's something that you cannot let go, and we are proud of it.
Hey, Mark, I have a question for you about some of the Israeli warfighters, some of the female Israeli warfighters in a minute. But, Ron, build a little bit on what Ken said, that there's a mindset, a methodology, an approach where Israelis and the Israeli government, the Israeli military, are fighting, constant war day by day. Flesh that out a little bit.
Well, there's never a dull moment. We are under pressure. We from the get-go in 1948, attacked by all our neighbors. We live in a very tough neighborhood, so we have to be in control over the situation and maintain some sort of life that is tolerable in Israel, and we are under attack daily. So what Ken said before is something very true. We can't wait for that day that 6 or 7 Arab nations will attack Israel again. We fight it battle by battle. So sometimes it's in the north against Lebanon, other times Syria. Obviously, the proxies of Iran are everywhere, and we have to fight it day by day. The good thing about it is that we can never be caught by surprise. We're always there, ready for any eventuality. That's the story.
All right. What we're going to do, gentlemen, is we're going to go to Trento War College in a couple of minutes here, and I want both of our experts, Ken and Roni, to think through. I want to provide for our listening audience today Jumpn Jummah Freaky Friday, January 10th. I want to provide for our audience some substantive information on the warfighting capability of the Israelis. So I'm going to ask both of you guys, Roni Wexler and Ken Abramowitz, on the capability of the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, the Army side of it. I want to learn about the Navy side of it. I want to learn about the Air Force side of it. And I want our audience to learn about the intelligence component. I want, at the end of this show, I want all of our listeners to understand the unique and I don't want to overstate, but the amazing capabilities of the Israeli Defense Forces as a unified whole.
Tom, can I bring up something that's really quick?
Yeah, sure. It's Jumpn Jummah. Anything goes on Jumpn Jummah.
Anyway, some of the news that's floating out there that's completely false, and I just want to put a tamp down on this thing. That they keep talking about this is a head fake. They didn't mean to do it, or they meant to do it, but and now they're done. They're not done. They're not done.
Are you talking about Iran?
Iran.
Yeah.
This is at best a hudna, a pause. They've been fighting us forever, okay? And they're going to continue to fight us. This is, if there's anything, there's a de-escalation phase, and then it's a rearmament phase for them until they figure out something. I just want to make clear that this is not over.
All right, that's a very, very good point. And if you missed yesterday's show, Thursday's show, we went through Iran and their options at this point in great detail. Go to our website, theunitedwest.org. theunitedwest.org. Look for our podcast. Yesterday's show, Thursday the 9th, we went through Iran's options, and today we're going through Israel's capabilities. But I believe we have our former producer, Damon Rosen, on the line live from Israel?
Yes, we do.
Damon Rosen, welcome to the Trento show. We have Jumpn Jummah Freaky Friday. We have the Counter Jihad Squad here today with J. Mark and Midwest Dick and Kenneth Abramowitz and Roni Wexler. How are you today?
I'm okay. Hopefully my audio is coming through better to you than yours is to me.
Damon, just worry about your end.
Yeah. Take the wax.
He's not in the
out of
studio.
your-
He's not in the studio.
Take
over
the
here.
wax. Damon's our former producer, and in 2015 we all went to Israel with Roni Wexler, and Damon never came back. We lost him, and he's still there. Yeah,
if you were here, Damon, you could be working on this.
Yeah, but we will, ladies and gentlemen. Here's our plan. If that donation thing works out the way it should, Damon will be here living with Mark
and complaining to me in person.
in our studio. Once we come back from Israel, we're going to Israel. All right, look, it's Tom Trento, bottom of the hour, WNN 1470. Very important show today. We're talking about Israel. Got Damon Rosen on the line. We are going to Israel. Don't be afraid of all this craziness. In fact, if you want to live where the action is and see it, and Roni, have you lost anybody in 30 years?
Never did so, no.
You lost Damon. He never came back, But
well, I wish everybody would be lost the way he is.
Yep. He made Aliyah and moved to Israel. And we're going in May. Wait, we're going in May. Commercial. This is a commercial, Damon. Let me get the commercial in. We're going in May of this year. I used to say next year, but it's 2020 already. We're going on the 18th through the 29th on a very unique special election year mission where we're setting up meetings with the ambassador, David Friedman, and we're setting up briefings from key military intelligence and political leaders, helping us understand what the needs are in the Middle East generally and specifically in Israel for elected officials. What type of elected officials are the Israelis looking for? And that's critically important. I'm going to throw it to our experts here. Why it's important to have the right kind of elected officials in America that represent this aircraft carrier in the middle of 330 million Muslims who want to destroy the West, why the 7 million Israelis are there and why that's so critical. We're going to talk about that. But go to our website, our other website, Jerusalem Day 2020, JerusalemDay2020.com. We're going there for Jerusalem Day, which is what?
Jerusalem Day.
What is Jerusalem Day, Ron?
Jerusalem Day is the day that Jerusalem was unified, East Jerusalem and West Jerusalem. East Jerusalem was held by the Jordanians, not by the Palestinians, by the Jordanians. Until 1967, war was waged on Israel, and Israel took back what was taken in 1948, and Jerusalem was unified again. That day, Jerusalem Day, that we will be in Jerusalem, will be the day that took place. So Jerusalem Day is commemorating the unification of the eternal capital of Israel.
And that's what we spoke about earlier, Ron, with you fighting in that war to reconstitute Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And yesterday on our show, we spoke about the IRGC, the Quds unit, the Al-Quds unit. Anybody speak Hebrew here?
Yeah, I speak Hebrew, but Quds is not in Hebrew. It's Jerusalem in Arabic.
In Arabic, right. So we spoke about that yesterday. What does that mean, the Al-Quds unit? Yeah. Hey, Damon, are you there? I got a question for Damon.
Here.
Yeah, with this Al-Quds unit, we spoke a little bit about it on yesterday's show, but what is the Al-Quds unit for Iran all about? What's that all about from your point of view?
Well, let's just go with the name. Let's begin with the name of the unit. It's called Al-Quds unit, the Jerusalem unit. Why does the country of Iran have a unit which is the most special of special units called Al-Quds, which means Jerusalem in Arabic? Even though they speak Farsi, they know that the rest of the Arabic world knows Al-Quds means Jerusalem, the holy city, the holy one. So people don't understand that Soleimani was responsible for conquering Jerusalem. And there are a few countries between Iran and Jerusalem. They're called Iraq and Syria. Okay, so part of what he was doing in Iraq and has been doing in Syria is to eventually eradicate the Jewish state of Israel and, to their definition, liberate Jerusalem. It's called the Quds Force, the Jerusalem Force.
True.
Unbelievable. Hey, Ken.
So,
well, go ahead. Finish up, Damon, and I got a question for Ken.
Start with that. And here's one thing that killed me is former defense secretary, I believe it was the defense secretary, Mike Mullen, was referring to Soleimani's demise as a blow to their national defense. And he said the term national defense several times. Yeah. And it blew my mind because Soleimani was explicitly assigned with exporting the revolution. Other than putting down the recent demonstrations within Iran, Soleimani was explicitly tasked with exporting the Shia revolution across the Levant. So it just befuddles me.
It's like calling Tom Brady a defensive linebacker. What
Yeah, right.
are you talking about?
Yeah,
He's an offensive quarterback, and this is what Soleimani was. He was the offensive quarterback meant to take over Jerusalem with the Al-Quds Force, like Damon says.
That's it. Hey, Tom Trento, you're listening.
The Al-Quds Force. It's called Roni, I'd like to refer to you.
Wait, hang on, Damon, hang on.
Correct
Damon.
in saying that
Tell me to hang on.
Soleimani was tasked with
Mute him out. Mute him out.
expansion, not national defense of their
Damon, hold on.
Hang
Damon.
on one second.
Hold on, Damon.
We have Damon hooked up through our duct tape productions, so he can't hear my voice at times. But you're listening to Tom Trento. I have the Counter Jihad Squad today here on Jumpn Jummah Freaky Friday. We have Ken Abramowitz, who directs two organizations, Save the West. What's the website, Ken?
Save the West is savethewest.com, and the other organizations is Citizens for National Security, which is CFNS.com.
All right. Have you been to Israel during Jerusalem Day?
Yes, I've been in Israel several times during Jerusalem Day.
What is that like? Because
it's very exciting because they have a big parade, and it's full of spirit and full of culture, which is a basic ingredient for success of any society.
All right. So May 18 through 29, we're going. We want you to come. You got to contact us. Go through our website, JerusalemDay2020.com, and you'll get all the information there. If you have any questions, you can contact us through that website. We want you to come. You'll meet Damon Rosen. And Damon, I got one more question for you before we let you go. We're focusing today on the military capability of Israel in light of all the enemies around it, and maybe the threat has increased, maybe it hasn't. But you spent a lot of time with IDF soldiers, both male and female, and give us a little insight into the fighting spirit of the average Israeli young soldier, not the guys that have been there for 25 years, all of that, but the guys right out of high school, the gals walking around, on Tel Aviv beach with their automatic weapons, and what's their fighting spirit like?
Well, I got to tell you, I realize I'm not there to work the studio, but I didn't understand a word of what you just said.
What's the difference?
So, Mark, I can hear you perfectly. So, Mark, if you could paraphrase the question, I'll gladly answer it.
The difference between the
what is the fighting spirit of the average
the fighting
Israeli
spirit of the
soldier?
average of the average Israeli? The fighting spirit of the average Israeli. What is that like?
Well, here's the thing. Israel is this little speck of land surrounded by 300 million people that want to destroy it. The United States is the strongest power on earth, and Mexico and Canada doesn't really pose a risk. Okay, so we have the sea on one side and enemies on the other side. And then Iran is further splitting. Well, what's amazing about this whole thing is that Soleimani, despite the Democrats, what they're saying, how terrible this is and how it infuriates the Muslim world, is ridiculous when Soleimani has more Muslim blood on his hands than he does even American blood. And people don't even talk about that. Your average Iranian in Los Angeles or your average Shiite Iraqi in Iraq is totally cool with Soleimani getting eliminated. It's only the hardcore left that's trying to handcuff Trump that's against it. And, of course, the Iranians and the Iranian influence in Iraq. But in Israel, we understand that Iran is the threat. And, Israel is Israel. I mean, we're aware of the threats. Let's just put it that way. We're aware of the threats.
All right. Well, that's good information from Damon, and we'll get our audio connection hooked up a little better for the next time we bring you on, which will be next week. We're going to see what's going on over the weekend, and we'll contact you early next week. Are you going to be anywhere in particular? Mark, you ask him if he's going to be anywhere in particular around the country next week.
Anywhere in particular around the country next week, Damon?
I'll be in Jerusalem.
Okay, you going up north? Is he going up north at all?
North or towards Hezbollah land?
Only if there's a good need to.
Okay,
I'll go.
All right. Thank you, Damon Rosen.
I'll be in Jerusalem.
That was Damon Rosen reporting from Jerusalem. Tom Trento, your host on WNN 1470, 95.3. Today we're taking a look at the warfighting capability of the nation of Israel. I want to start with the regular ground troops, the Army. Ken, what has been your experience? I know you visited many of the troops and different bases and all of that. What has impressed you about the organizational capability, and what defects have you found that you think need correcting?
Let me just digress for 60 seconds.
Sure, yeah.
Before I answer that question, and you'll see why. There's three elements that I look at in every single country to determine the success of that country. I look at the success of the economy, the ability of the country to maintain its culture, and the ability of a country to protect itself physically. So you asked me a question, how is the physical capabilities of Israel? So I just wanted to finish this point, which is that if you don't have a strong economy and you don't have a strong culture, by definition, you can't defend yourself. And so Israel is blessed, and it learned it the hard way. It's not like like any country, we learn from our mistakes. Israel has a vibrant economy that's growing 4% a year. It's able to perpetuate its culture through its educational system, through its religious institutions, and therefore it's able to have a strong military. So now to answer your question, Israel can basically beat up everybody in the Middle East by itself. And there's only 9 million people in Israel, 7 million Jews. So how can a little country basically beat up 300 million people simultaneously if it had to? Again, go back to what I had said before. You have a strong economy. You can buy the weapons that are needed to maintain a technological edge. You have a strong culture. That means when the citizens are 18 to 21, they're believers. They're believers in the society and in the culture and in the history and in the future. Israel, by the way, produces 3 babies per family. It's the highest production of babies of any country, Western country in the world. And so you put the strong economy and the strong culture, and then you put the resources together in the hands of the IDF, which is Israel Defense Forces, not Israel Offense Forces, right, so to speak, and you have the strongest army in the Middle East.
Very, very interesting. It's reminiscent of Ronald Reagan's three-legged stool, where during his campaigning he said the same thing. For a civilization or a culture to be stabilized, to be strong, to be effective, you have to have a strong national security, a strong economy, and a strong social moral network. And I was part of the Reagan religious right, And most of our work back then was on the social issues, and he was very not only considerate of, but endorsing the Judeo-Christian worldview. Well, since Reagan was here those years ago and today, things have dissipated. But we know, because we've experienced it, Israel is tightening its cultural unanimity, even in light of all the crazy election stuff that's still going on, tightening its economic capability. That's how much time left. And then tightening its military capability. One of the places you take us, Ron, is to Latrun, a former battleground and currently the museum for the Armored Division, and we climb all over that Merkava 4. Tell the folks what a Merkava 4 is, and is it antiquated? I mean, is there a battle scenario out there where Merkava 4s would be useful?
Well, absolutely so. But first I want to say to Ken that I appreciate what you said. It's absolutely to the point. What makes Israel strong are those 3 points that you mentioned, and I'm proud to be a part of that society. As for the military and Israel, it's not that we have our back to the wall and we don't have a choice. We do have a choice, but we need to protect this country because all those points that were mentioned here before. Merkava is a tank in Israel, was produced in Israel, designed, produced in Israel, to provide Israel with, number one, a tank, because there was an embargo on Israel. Israel could not buy tanks, not from anyone, including the United States at one point or another. So that bank is designed to fight in an area, in terrain, that Israel has in different parts of the country. But I remember a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago, Ken, we met at an Air Force base at the end of a class that received their wings. And for the first time, the F-35 was revealed to the public. And what I noticed there, aside from saying hello to Ken, was the families of the pilots and their children, young, some of them 6, 7 years old, and they only had one thing in mind, to be a part of what we saw there that day, to also become pilots. And there is a tradition, like in the States, you go to a school and you want your kids to go to the same school. In Israel, we belong to a brigade, and we wish to continue the legacy. So you ask me, is Israel ready? Is Israel motivated? Absolutely so, yes.
Well, that's very interesting you said that, because when we're there on our trips, we always spend extra time. We go early, we stay later, and we have friends there that we hang out with. And I've been with many friends, Israelis, when they meet someone else and they start talking, in Hebrew usually, I'll say, what are you guys talking about? Oh, he was in the same brigade I was a few years earlier, and they're like brothers immediately because they had served in the same unit. And that's worldwide in many respects, but more so when you're fighting for your life every single day. We'll go back to the Merkava for a minute. Then I want to bring up that F-35, that Lockheed Martin F-35. And what we're doing today, ladies and gentlemen, Tom Trento, your host, WNN, 1470 on your radio dial, 95.3 or iHeartRadio, or you can go to WWNNradio.com. You can listen through the internet. Go there and click on air, and you can hear it. iHeart is the most mobile way of doing it. On this Jumpn Jummah Freaky Friday, January 10th.
That's a new one.
Yeah. We're looking at the warfighting capability of Israel. And this Merkava, what's Merkava mean again? I forgot the...
Merkava literally is a chariot.
Chariot, exactly. Yeah. Amazing tank. And I guess there are there certainly are battle scenarios where the Merkava can be used in the south, north, all over the place. I know they bring it out every once in a while.
Well, especially if an Air Force is decimated. I mean, then it becomes a primary weapon. The only thing that really stops a tank is an airplane, or a helicopter.
Yeah, and this thing, the Abrams M1A1 is a phenomenal tank, and there's arguments which one is better, but certainly the Merkava is the most extraordinary and unique and superior tank in the Middle East. The Russians don't even have anything that can stand up to it. Now let's go over to the Air Force, the renowned IAF. We have a little bit of experience with General David Avery, who commanded Operation Opera back in 1981, June 7th. And Ken, you were there. You saw the F-35 Lightning II. You saw that single-seat, single-engine aircraft performing.
Yes, the Israelis are very excited to have the F-35. And even though from an outsider's point of view, it doesn't look so much different than a F-16. It's just a modern version of the F-16. But it does have stealth capabilities, so it's not well seen on radar. And secondly, the pilots tell me that the software is spectacular. And they say to me, one of the key problems is you need a situational awareness of what's going on. Where are the bad guys? Where are the good guys? When you're flying at 600 or 1,000 miles an hour, you don't have a lot of time to think. You have to make decisions. And the software gives them great situational awareness, and that can give them 1 or 2 seconds. And so I remember saying to one of the pilots, what's 1 or 2 seconds? He says, it's the difference between life and death. Because you have that information before the bad guys have the information, and you can react to it. And that's a big margin in warfare. So they have about 15, maybe by now they have 20. I think they're on their way to between 50 and 75 F-35s, and it's also like a command unit that can help guide the other planes in the squadron or the other planes that aren't the F-35s do their mission too. So it's a very important technological advance. They call it 5th generation. The other aircraft are 4th generation, and they say that a 5th generation beats a 4th generation fighter every day in any situation. So that's why it's so important to have that.
Well, can I give an analogy, or a quick analogy?
Yeah, sure.
In World War II, the number one thing that made the difference between ace pilots and everybody else was their vision. They usually had, even in Israeli Air Force, the top aces all had the 2015 vision. And now with these new advanced technologies that you're talking about, you basically get the vision of an eagle in a cockpit. And you can see, and it just really, really makes the pilot in control and in command of the battle space. Is what happens.
Well, let me tell you a little bit something about that. And the Israelis, gentlemen here, Midwest Dick, Roni, Mark, and Ken, the Israelis really pissed off the Top Gun pilots in the United States of America. That's for sure. I'll tell you why in a minute. But regarding the capabilities of the F-35, with it, they developed a helmet that has sensor capability within it. So no longer do the pilots have to look around to identify something, look even on the radar what's coming in. It's all on a screen in their helmet, and you talk about the milliseconds of making command decisions. This helmet looks like something out of a spaceship, and there's so many sensors tied into their face, and they're using artificial intelligence now to shoot at multiple targets. But Ken, you could have one today if they would sell you one. You could have one today for the mere cost of, somebody guess.
$35 million.
No, the helmet. The helmet.
Oh, helmet, 25 grand?
25?
I'd say it's in the millions. It's got to be in the millions.
No, it's not in the millions. Anybody? $400,000.
Wow.
$400,000 for the helmet. Can you imagine? You're the pilot. You're going in this billion-dollar plane, and they go, "Here's your helmet. Don't drop it. Don't drop the helmet. Put it on. Real carefully, and don't put any stickers on it. Don't do anything.
Don't stencil my name on that thing."
Unbelievable. But you know why the Israelis have pissed off the American flyboys, the Top Gun guys?
What's happened?
They were the first ones to use the F-35 in combat. Can you imagine that? An American-built airplane sold to the Israelis, and they get to use it in combat before the Americans. They used it in wiping out some of the Syrian missiles that were going from Iran over to Lebanon.
They had to be loving that.
They flew a couple of combat missions, 4 or 5 or 6, before the Americans start using it in Syria, hitting some bases. And there's a rumor. Now, I don't know, Ron. You may know about Israeli stuff, but there's a rumor that 3 trips, the F-35 took 3 trips from a base in Israel to Tehran and back, and obviously unknown because of the stealth capabilities you mentioned, Ken. But there's tremendous warfighting capability with that, too. Let's go with the remaining time. We got about 10 minutes left. Let's talk. So we have a ground force, with the Merkava and with other armaments. The Israelis are using a lot of drone technology now, too. They have a superior air force. What about their Navy? You don't hear much about the Navy. You know anything about the Navy, Ken?
I remember. Yes, I know a few things. I visited a Navy base a few years ago, and I talked to the base commander, and I said, "What you need is an aircraft carrier." And he laughed, and he says, "Thank you very much. If I had an aircraft carrier, I would have to put almost the whole Israeli Navy on it, and I wouldn't have any other Navy left." So he says, "Thank you very much for the suggestion. I'll think about it." So they don't have a huge Navy, but they have a very strong Navy. The Navy mostly has patrol boats. Israel doesn't have a Coast Guard like we have. So Israel's Navy is the Coast Guard to some extent, and it's a Navy like our Navy, minus, of course, an aircraft carrier. They have what they call SARs, S-A-R, 3, 4, 5. They're probably up to 6 by now, and they keep getting bigger and bigger. They're basically the equivalent of a destroyer, and Israel has to protect its offshore gas fields. Israel's becoming a very major producer of natural gas, so it obviously has to protect those gas fields. So that's a primary goal of the Navy. They have to protect their coast, like the Coast Guard, of course. And a third element of their Navy is projecting power around the world, the Middle Eastern world. And so they have 6 submarines, and I'm sure they're very active off the coast of Iran, but they're also, I'm sure, active off the coast of Lebanon and Syria. And they're important to protect those gas fields, of course, and they're also important for projecting power. And also, they're used for reconnaissance. They can put sailors. Obviously, sailors are on the submarine, but they can also put commandos in and send them out of the submarine and on shore, some shore, to do some reconnaissance also.
Yeah, they have a Navy SEAL. We used to have shirts, Navy SEAL units. But I'm reading now, as you were articulating that, they have 3 or 4 of those SARs, 8 missile boats, 5 submarines, 5 or 6 submarines, 45 patrol boats. This looks like a game you play with your family. You got 2 boats, I have 2 over here. This is silly. I mean, it's silly in terms of a Navy. Ron, why don't they have a larger Navy? What's their thinking?
Well, I think that the Israeli Navy is sufficient for what we need a Navy for. It's a small country. I think what Ken said about the submarines is probably the most important part of the Israeli Navy, because we can be in places that otherwise we couldn't be and operate there. The capabilities of the Navy is obvious. All of them, all the SARs and all the other what we call dabur are missile boats, and they might be very small, but they're very fast, and they can inflict tremendous damage if they have to. But going back a little bit to the Merkava before, I want to say that just a few days ago, it was approved to continue. It's not a pilot anymore. Actually, it's now part of a service for Israeli women to serve in the Merkava units.
Really? Wow.
Yes. And some of them actually were the top of the class, and they had proven to be tremendously fit to operate Merkavas. There's a lot of debate whether they should or they shouldn't be in sensitive areas, but I can tell you that I wouldn't take a chance to be in front of a Merkava driven by 4 Israeli women who are very determined.
Especially if it's their time of the month. I don't care what that is. He's going down,
But
He's going down.
But
You're so trouble now, Tom.
It is a fact now. So women are serving in the armor division, and they're commanding.
I guess they're not going to mix this. Maybe they do mix the sexes.
No, they don't mix units in the same tanks.
Oh, okay.
But they are serving.
Because it's close quarters, but that means one of those chicks has to lift a very heavy munition, 40, 50, 60 pounds.
And that was a part of the situation, because they said that they have to pick them by weight, the women, by weight, by ability to carry, by heights, and so on and so forth. But on the other hand, smaller people in a tank works better. They're more movable. So it works, and it's a part of it. And next time when we go to Israel in May, we will meet some of them. We'll meet some of them.
That would be cool. What do you do? I drive a friggin' Merkava. What do you do?
I got a question to Ken about...
Marcos, I drive a Toyota convertible.
Cadillac, give me a break.
Oh, okay.
The question for Ken is, on the submarines, do they have like ballistic, like Polaris missiles or anything like that, or any type of nuclear capability?
Yeah, Israel doesn't talk about what's on the submarines, so you only could guess what's on the submarine. And the submarines come from Germany, and I've never heard the word. Our submarines are nuclear powered.
Right.
I believe theirs are just traditionally powered, not nuclear powered. They're not. They're not
diesel. They're diesel.
Yeah, diesel. Yeah, so they're not as in our class of submarines. And Israel has never said what's on the submarines. So, but America has, of course, missiles that are nuclear tipped, and they have cruise missiles. So I'm sure they're able to shoot something. That's one of the reasons they're there.
Are they about half the size of like American submarine, or do you know?
I'll guess that they're half the size, but I don't know that.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are smaller than American ones, but they're very effective. It's a Dolphin class sub. It's very, very effective. All right, we got a couple of minutes left. Ken Abramowitz, tell us the 2 organizations you head up again and how people can contact you, how they can get involved with your organizations.
Yes, and just give me 30 seconds. I want to digress on women in the Army, because that was the topic of just a few minutes ago. Women traditionally have played a huge role in the IDF in terms of training, because Israel didn't traditionally want the women in combat, but the women wanted to be close to combat, that many of the trainers are women. I went to a base, and there was a woman guiding the men in the tank. The men were doing all the work, but when they finished the exercise, I saw her talking to them. I was just imagining what she was saying, like, you should have done that, just, like a wife, you should have done this. Why didn't you do that? How come you missed this? And so it's, and they were all listening. They were all listening very attentively. So I just wanted people to know that.
That's a good point. In
terms of the 2 organizations that I'm involved with, they're different. by definition, Citizens for National Security is a Boca Raton-based organization, has 5 seminars a year in the winter months. People should look at the website and come to them, and they're open to the public. Also, we do research, and also we do outreach to the politicians, and we focus on, let's say, 5 or 10 key national security issues. Save the West focuses on every single national security issue you can imagine, and I monitor 40 different fronts.
Wow.
In my mind, the U.S. is fighting 40 separate wars, challenges, issues, problems. And so I try to address all the 40 problems facing America, or, by the way, any democracy. Israel would be the same story, where Citizens for National Security is more focused on specific issues facing the United States.
All right, Ken Abramowitz, thank you for your work. We appreciate you being on yesterday's show, too. We got a lot done on the Iranian situation, Citizens for National Security, and Save the West. Ken Abramowitz, we'll have you back for sure. Well, Mark and Midwest Dick and Roni, we're coming down to the end of another Friday, Jumpn Jummah Freaky Friday, January 10th. I want everybody to have a wonderful weekend. Mark, your concluding thoughts before we go?
Iran is going to be a problem still, like we said yesterday.
Yeah, because as we looked into yesterday, their constitution, it essentially mandates control of the free world. So, but that's it. Tom Trento here, your host, WNN. We're signing off on Friday, January 10th. Everybody have a wonderful, safe weekend, and continue praying for this president, Donald Trump, and the folks making these significant decisions. And God bless America and Israel. We'll see you next week.